Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. And today, I think we need to have a little conversation about defunding the police and what that means. Um, there's been a lot of talk about it lately. Well, there's been a lot of talk about it for a long time, but most of you are just hearing about it for the first time now. Um, this has been part of a conversation of large portion of the country for quite a while now, and everybody else is just getting up to speed. So, since this might be the first time y'all have heard about the concept of defunding the police, I thought number one, we'd take a look at exactly what police funding looks like before we talk about defunding the police. And then I'd like to show you what we spend relatively on police compared to other stuff that, oh, I don't know, determines how often society would need police. And then I'll let you decide for yourself if we are literally creating our own problem just so we can spend a shit ton of money to create the solution. So here you go. This is a current breakdown of total police budgets for cities in the United States of America comparative to entire countries' military budgets. Okay, top of the list right there, the NYPD. The total NYPD budget is right about $6 billion per year. Billion with a B. $6 billion a year is the police budget for the city of New York. That is the same amount of money that the entire Ukrainian military spends. And that's a country on active war footing. Is how much just the NYPD spends on policing the citizens of the city of New York. And with a $6 billion price tag, the onus is on the police to generate as much revenue as possible to sort of shave that number down a little bit. So you would think that the more spending a police department gets, the less they would have to shake people down for money, but you would be wrong. The more money that a police department spends, the more revenue a police department has to generate in order to validate that massive expenditure in the first place. So don't think that this means this makes it safer or makes it better. It just means that New York has a lot of police. That's all it means. LAPD 1.7 billion. Chicago PD 1.7 billion. That's ridiculous. Look, Chicago has a total population of less than 3 million people, and they spend $1.7 billion just on funding the police. I need y'all to understand just how ridiculous a number that is, okay? This is for policing. There's an entire school of thought out there that says human beings are just, kind of horrible and they can't control themselves, so they need to be policed. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a handful of those people who need to be policed and we're going to make them the police. And then we're going to give them guns, we're going to give them immunity from prosecution, and we're going to spend billions of dollars a year paying and equipping them. But go ahead, that's logical, right? So here, let me break this down. Let me make this a little more granular for you so you can truly grasp the depth of the situation here, okay? Let's bring this up. So here's our first handy dandy little chart for the day. How much is the police's military equipment worth? Now, for those who don't know, there's a federal program that essentially allows police departments to buy used military equipment just so that the military can justify their billion-dollar annual budget and then have to purchase more equipment because now they have no more equipment because they gave it all to the police, which is why there are little towns out there in America that have like 6,000 people, but the police have an MRAP with a mounted LRAD and a 50 cal cannon on it. Like, do you think like fucking Walla Walla, Washington, needs an MRAP with a 50 cal on it? No, they don't. But you know what? If you can get it from the government for a song, hey, why the hell not? It's not like the federal government won't just buy more, right? Yeah, this is great. So I want you to understand just how much military equipment your police have that go into that $6 billion annual budget in New York City, the $1.8 billion annual budget in Chicago, the $1.8 billion annual budget in Houston. I want you to understand how much of that is the value of military gear. Look at this. Mine-resistant vehicles, what we would call an MRAP. Those are the large, they look like the gigantic Chevy Tahoes with the 3-foot high tires with a dude sitting on the roof on with a big ass gun. Yeah, that's an MRAP, okay? The total number of MRAPs owned by police departments in America is 849. There are almost 1,000 towns out there in America that have MRAPs, okay? And those MRAPs are worth $583 million. All that money was spent with your tax dollars by the federal government on gear that they send to the military that the military then lets the police departments buy for a song on an auction. So your tax dollars didn't actually pay for that MRAP once, it paid for that MRAP twice. And that MRAP gets broken out 3 times a year. Once a year for like the Labor Day parade, and then twice a year where your local cops get all juiced up and go fucking knock down a door on a no-knock raid to go, arrest Willie, the guy who normally stands on the corner and yells at trees. Yeah, that seems like a really good use of money. Aircraft, fixed and rotary wing for police departments. $433 million worth of aircraft owned by the police. Almost 500 planes and helicopters, that is. Utility trucks. Hey, you ever seen police departments with these really large, they look like dump trucks, only they're plated and they're filled with sand because they use them as bomb walls to put around buildings like Trump Tower in New York City or around downtown Cleveland during the DNC. Yeah, those are like military grade dump trucks. Guess what? There's over 5,600 of those in police departments across America, and that's another $285 million worth of gear. Hey, look, 5.56 millimeter rifles, armored trucks, night vision gear, unmanned vehicles. Those are called drones. Yeah, 72 of those out and about in your police departments. This is more than $1 billion worth of military equipment that your police department bought from the military with your tax dollars after the military bought it from weapon manufacturers. Guess what? Survey says with your tax dollars. Very good. Hey, guess what? It goes from bad to worse. You want to know what the ratio is? Here, this is San Antonio, Texas. This is the total city budget for the city of San Antonio. $820 million on public safety, or what we would call the police, jails, I don't know, maybe some crossing guards. You know what the second largest expenditure was? Other. You know what you don't see on that list? Education, which means education is falling into the other category, which means a whole bunch of other shit plus education equals a third of what they're spending on the police. And public safety includes fire police and parks police. So that's down below. $820 million a year. And you're only spending $114 million on infrastructure, $52 million on parks, and $292 million on other, which includes school lunch programs, every school district in the city, every single teacher's salary, all that stuff. All the money that we spend on education and healthcare in the city of San Antonio is a third of what they spend on the police. A third, okay? So once again, when people start talking about defunding the police, take a look at the pie chart. We've been defunding everything else for decades, okay? Let's not make it sound like fucking, defunding the police department, that's crazy. Look, we've defunded everything else. Look, that's San Antonio. But wait, there's more. Here you go. This is the city of Boston. You've heard of Boston, right? Big ass city, lots of money. Hey, what do they got? Total police department spending in the city of Boston, $414 million, with another $60 million in police overtime. But don't worry, they spend $41 million on libraries. That's right. They spend more on police overtime, for the entire year than they spend on libraries. You know, the things that have books where people learn how to read so they can get an education, so they can better themselves. So guess what? They don't have to do crime. It's almost like if we stopped cutting budgets of schools and libraries, and maybe we started cutting police budgets from their astronomical number. If we defunded the police and maybe, I don't know, funded libraries, maybe that would stave off about half the problem to begin with, and then you wouldn't need a police department that spends $450 million a year policing its own citizens. I know, crazy stuff, right? I am the kooky one, let me tell you. What else do we got? How much do cities spend on policing? Just in case you were wondering. Here's your total numbers. Once again, this one is from 2017. So this is from 2 years ago, okay? So we just said New York is spending $6 billion. Back in 2017, they were spending $4.89 billion, which means not only is police funding astronomical, but it went up at a rate of, $600 million a year in New York for the last 3 years. That's amazing. And over here to the right, this is percentage of the total city's budget. Look at this. Chicago's spending 40% of its total budget on police. Houston, 35% of its total budget on police. Oakland, 41% of its entire budget on police. Hey, you know what happens when you spend 41% of your entire state budget just on policing? You end up with a lot of people in jail and not a lot of people in school. Brilliant. This is an ace plan, everybody. I'm glad to see this is what we're doing. So I would like to leave you with this thought. I know a lot of you are hearing the idea of defunding the police for the very first time, and it's kind of frightening. And people are like, but what are we going to do? Does that mean there would be no police? Would there be chaos in the streets? Is it freaking Mad Max? Do we all have to walk around with flamethrowers on our back just to go to the freaking mailbox and get the goddamn mail? No, defunding the police doesn't mean all that. But again, we've been defunding healthcare and education and local infrastructure to the point where our bridges are collapsing, our roads are degrading, our hospitals are on par with nations that we would scoff at. Our schools are a bloody fucking shambles. We got 50 kids to a classroom. We got mold problems. We got books that were written in the 1940s. And we got teachers who guess what? They're making substantially less than the police. So here's an idea. Here's an idea. Even if defunding the police sounds like too radical a plan for you, how about we do this? How about we spend as much on policing as we spend on education? How about we spend as much on policing as we do on healthcare? How about we spend as much on policing as we do on infrastructure? What if we take that pie and we just make it 4 even quarters? Let's try that. Let's just see what would happen if we stop spending so much money criminalizing our population and we spend a little more money educating and caring for the population.